You know, Uncle Dan,
Yo.
it's funny, there's something so, just something about Mormonism that's so affirming.
Hey, there's an entire Mormon organization called Affirmation.
That's true. That's true. And it's just, they're always on the right side of everything. And
That's what I like about Mormonism is they're so on the cutting edge. They're the front lines of all of the social issues.
That's right. They're all about pronouns. So, Doug, why don't you tell us their latest kind of pronoun conundrum?
Well, uncles, given the fact, longtime listeners will surely know that given the fact that we live well behind enemy lines and live our lives deep in the heart of Mormon country, and given the fact that we all three spent our formative years as Mormons, that sometimes we talk about all things Mormon.
Yeah.
However, somehow we have managed to avoid this subject for quite a while. In fact, by my count, we haven't talked about anything Mormon for, let me see, carry the one, 3 episodes.
Okay, so, wow.
That's a record for us.
We may
have just set a record.
And the Mormon Church apparently noticed this drought and decided to make sure that they continue to garner the much-needed publicity that this podcast affords them. So, to set the mood for what we're about to talk about, put yourself in the mindset of the current Mormon leadership. This obviously makes you a very old white man from the desert southwest that spent most of your life thinking that black people were cursed by God and continue to believe that women have been getting mighty uppity since they got the vote, and that scissoring is gross, although for some reason it keeps showing up in your wife's internet search history. Although, can I just toss out Uncle Mark's joke from episode 96 that no man knows my search history?
Yeah, we're going to start selling that as a cleansing service for
just one of those jokes that needs to be remembered. Yeah, that's awesome.
Hashtag no man knows my search, and no man knows my search history.
That is a super inside joke that I want to explain to all of our non-Mormon listeners. There is a book called No Man Knows My History, and it's about Joseph Smith and blah blah blah. So just so you all get it, I thought we'd throw that.
Yeah,
the
best jokes are the ones that needed to be explained. So
require an episode of explanation,
right? And that will be next episode where we'll just dig deep into that joke.
So back to the Mormon mindset.
Okay.
As you look out upon your empire, you cannot help but to feel a certain kind of satisfaction. Sure, your growth numbers are abysmal. The CES letter and that one episode of South Park have done more damage to your religion than the U.S. Army or any angry mob from Missouri ever could. But it's not all bad, right? Your real estate holdings, the only real reason this faith still exists, are doing fine.
Are doing great.
Your shopping malls are cranking. With the current makeup of the federal government, you are free to engage in all the politics you want without fear of paying taxes. And to that end, your bought and paid for state legislature is busy fulfilling your will by thwarting the will of the people.
Yeah.
So, however, something is bothering you. It's just an itch you cannot ignore, and you know deep down you're going to have to deal with it eventually. In spite of all the liquid cash flowing tax-free into your coffers, you can't help but think, no one is talking about how shockingly retrograde and bigoted we really are. I mean, it's crazy how backward and dangerous our beliefs are, and how much damage they continue to cause, and no one's talking about it. Back in April, we got the tongues a-wagging when we rescinded the November policy, but since then, people have kind of forgotten how actively shitty we are. Somebody needs to do something about that. And that somebody is me, Russel M. Nelson, the 95-year-old top skexy in charge of this real estate religion. So back in episode 81, we talked about the rescinding of the church's so-called November policy. So just a very quick recap. The leader of the church at the time, Thomas S. Monson, instituted a policy in 2015.
Yeah, he came out of his delirium for
stupor
15 minutes.
For real.
Decided that Jesus told him to do this.
And this policy took out his vile disdain for gay and transgender adults on their children, barring these children from full participation in the church unless and until they denounced their parents and moved out. No shit.
Yeah.
Yeah, so after 41 months of pressing their palm down as hard as they could on the hot stove, and after medical science could no longer keep Monson's lack of a heart beating, the church rescinded the policy. And while less harm is better than more harm, there was a flurry of negative publicity for the church since this all reminded everyone about the policy in the first place.
Well, and also pointed out distinctly to those who cared to bother to look that, God told you to do one thing, and then months later, less than 2 years later, told you to stop doing that thing.
And it wasn't like church is 2 hours, not 3 hours.
Right.
This was actively harmful.
This was,
Well, Since then, some of the dust has settled, and were the church able to simply keep their mouth shut, perhaps even more dust would settle, as this vile policy slipped further down the memory hole to take its place next to the church's many other abandoned evil policies. But since it is long-standing church policy to never miss an opportunity to miss an opportunity, they decided to remind us all once again.
Sometimes it's good to kick yourself in the face. You never know.
Exactly. That rake's not going to step on itself.
There's no such thing as bad press, apparently.
So, just days ago, Russel M. Nelson, and the M, by the way, in a very weird coincidence, stands for Melania, journeyed 45 minutes to the south to give a speech at the main madrasa of Mormonism, that is Brigham Young University. This speech, which was a preview for the church's general conference coming up in October,
I hope you folks have your tickets. They're
doing previews for that shit now.
Yeah.
Nelson laid out 5 truths that he wanted his flock to ponder. Truth number 1, we are all a son or daughter of God.
Hooray!
Truth number 2, truth is truth.
That's a good one. That needed to be stated.
Truth number 3, God loves everyone with perfect love. Pause. Truth number 4, prophets and apostles communicate God's love and teach his laws.
Oh, goodness.
Truth number 5, all people may know for themselves what is true and what is not. What? Now let me just give the How to Heretic snap rebuttal to these 5 truths. No, we weren't. That's a stupid thing to say. No, he most certainly does not. No, you don't. No shit, Sherlock. All right, moving on. If any of our Nevermo listeners are unconvinced by our characterization of this cult as pure, uncut, cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs insanity, search Russel M. Nelson and the Love and Laws of God speech and watch 5 minutes of this unnerving dreck, and then come back and apologize becoming a patron. I watched this thing in its entirety, and you owe me. So, we're going to get to what made this speech particularly egregious in just a second, but even leaving that aside, there were, of course, the run-of-the-mill crazy pearls such as these. Quote, you are the children whom God chose to be part of his battalion during this great climax in the long-standing battle between good and evil. I would not be surprised if, when the veil is lifted in the next life, we learn that you actually pled with our Heavenly Father to be reserved for now. I would not be surprised to learn that premortally, you love the Lord so much you promise to defend his name and gospel during the world's tumultuous winding up scenes.
Oh my God, that is so perfectly Mormon.
So Mormon.
Oh
and
my God,
you guys remember?
Idea, I think he covered all of the bases with that.
Yeah,
pre-existence. Oh, that's good stuff.
That's yum, 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 yum.
Do you guys remember when we talked about patriarchal blessings back in episode what the fuck ever, and you know. Something that happened a lot when I was a kid so patriarchal blessings, Nevermo listeners, I'm so sorry, are these basically it's a tarot reading by some old creeper in your neighborhood and
without cards
and just some shaky cold hand. But a lot of the kids I knew who were like falling away from the church, as most of us were, you know, your parents would give this guy some prompts. And it was basically like, oh, you sang at the nativity. You were an angel in the sky at the nativity. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And this is the same fucking coercion. It's because they're hemorrhaging young people. So it's like, you are the last and the great hope of this church. You will be the warriors on the wall.
You volunteered for the toughest job there is.
You're so special.
Look at how great you are.
It is
look at your bravery.
Yeah.
So here's another little nugget from the speech. Quote, the arbiter of truth is God, not your favorite social media feed, not Google, and certainly not those who are disaffected from the church. Hi, Russell. It's good to know you're a listener.
Yeah.
Oh, my God. I love that. I love it because they have at various moments in LDS history tried to dissuade people from going onto the onlines, onto the internets, the webs, the various and sundry Facebooks and whatever, including telling the women, specifically the women,
to take a break.
To take a 1 week fast from Facebook.
I think it was 10 days, wasn't it? They had to take a 10-day, 10-day just the women.
Just the women, but like, what the fuck? No.
It's the men who are looking at all the porn in Utah County. There are statistics.
Exactly.
Well, they can't tell the men to stop looking at the porn. That'd be ridiculous.
Yeah.
So let's get to the heat of the meat, in which Nelson tries, and spoiler alert, fails, to justify and explain the short-lived November policy. I hate to do this, but I've got to quote him at length here, so just bear with me.
Let me know when you're done. Call me when you're done.
Yeah, right.
I'll put my headphones back on.
And everybody, as Doug reads this, I want you to picture... I'm not sure if it's Statler or Waldorf because I get them mixed up.
Just take your pick.
Just the you know who it is. It's actually, and I hate Jeff Dunham, but it's Jeff Dunham's old man puppet.
Yeah, for real.
He looks exactly like that.
Yeah.
So if you can picture that.
I think he looks like you buried Bob Newhart in a pet cemetery.
If you took the crypt keeper and gave him like Beverly Hills best skin treatment.
Yeah, and you also have to picture this person speaking in front of like deep space, a starless it's this black background. It's very weird.
I like it. How Apple of them.
Right, yeah. Okay, so let's go. He starts out by setting the stage and laying out the church's baseline bigotry. So, quote, for example, let's consider the definition of marriage. In recent years, many countries, including the United States, have legalized same-sex marriage. As members of the church, we respect the laws of the land and abide by them, including civil marriage. The truth is, however, that in the beginning, marriage was ordained by God. Emphasis was his. And to this day, it is defined by him as being between a man and a woman. All right, so here we go. Hooray.
This is very shaky ground for Mormons to tread upon, but...
Right? Yeah. Mormonism, inventors of non-traditional marriage.
For real.
In these United States, yes.
Yeah. He goes on. Though we of the first presidency and the quorum of the 12 apostles cannot change the laws of God, we do have the charge to build up the church and regulate all its affairs of the same in all nations. Thus, we can adjust policy when the Lord directs us to. You have recently seen such examples. Because the restoration is ongoing, policy changes will surely continue. He goes on. Perhaps I can illustrate this through policy adjustments regarding those who identify themselves as lesbian, gay, bisexual, or transgender, LGBT, and their children. And then he says, I realize that other initials could be added to this acronym, but LGBT would suffice for the purposes of this message.
Oh, good. He's conscious of all of the different acronyms.
Pronouns, I told you, these people, they're super woke.
Yeah, exactly. The chill you just felt run up your spine was caused by a 95-year-old bigot trying to sound woke while vilifying a population.
Yeah.
This does mark, however, the first time a church president has uttered that acronym. So, progress.
Oh, for real?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Interesting.
Okay.
In order to express a more specific hatred for it, but credit where credit is due.
Progress.
Yeah.
So, he goes on. Consider the policy announced in November 2015 related to the advisability of baptism for the children of LGBT parents. Our concern then, and one we discussed at length and prayed about fervently over a long period of time, was to find a way to reduce friction between gay and lesbian parents and their children.
Suck a bag of dicks, you lying fuck.
Yeah, fuck you.
Yeah.
Okay.
In the name of Jesus Christ, amen.
We got to keep plowing on. Quote, because parents are the primary exemplars for their children, we did not want to put young children in the position of having to choose between the beliefs and behavior they learned at home and what they were being taught at church. We wanted to facilitate harmony in the home and avoid pitting children and parents against each other. Thus, in 2015, the policy was made to assist children and their parents in these circumstances. Namely, that children being raised by LGBT parents would not automatically be eligible for baptism at 8. Exceptions to this policy would require first presidency approval. The first presidency and quorum of the 12 have continued to seek the Lord's guidance and plead with him in behalf of his children who were affected by the 2015 policy. We knew that this policy created concern and confusion for some and heartache for others. That grieved us. Whenever the sons and daughters of God weep, for whatever reasons, we weep. So supplication to the Lord continued. Okay, there's one little more paragraph here. Hang on tight. Though it may not have looked this way to some, the 2015 and 2019 policy adjustments on this matter were both motivated by love. The love of our Heavenly Father for his children and the love of the brethren for those whom they serve. Fuck you. Fuck you all the way up.
And fuck your sense of what love looks like.
Right. Yeah, and there's nothing more enraging than the sanitized syntax of corporate bigotry. You know.
Well, the idea that we wanted to reduce friction. First of all, we didn't want to cause dissonance between what was being taught in the home and taught at church. The presumption there being what's being taught at church
supersedes
whatever's being taught in the home.
Exactly.
Well, but
Dear
also
God, that's insane.
Also the presumption that, I mean, okay, first of all, we're talking about a weird situation here.
Yeah.
Which is that the situation where in a household with gay parents, the child is somehow wanting to go to church. Like,
Exactly.
like we're talking about a very strange, like, and the parents are down for that.
Right.
That's a gay parenting fail.
That is
sorry. I can say that.
100% a fail on the
can say
part
that.
of these gay parents. However, so it's like, I mean, we're talking about a fairly rare situation anyway, but like, it is bizarre to think that, like, I mean, I guess he's right when you think about it, that there would be conflict between what they're seeing at home and what they're hearing at church.
Yeah.
And that would be confusing for the child. And I think that that should actually have been the problem of the gay parents and not the problem of the church.
Right.
But when the church decided to solve that problem, boy, did they shit on their own coffee.
Right,
here's the-
it's just cruelty. I know he's trying to dress it up now in this. The child raising version of you have to destroy the village in order to save it. That means love, but it's just cruelty. It was just meant to be mean.
And for whatever reasons, whether it was actual human empathy, which I somewhat doubt, or if it was just bad publicity, which I'm almost certain it was, they decided they'd gone too far.
Yeah.
So fine. But the longer you justify this by claiming it was divinely inspired, the more damage you do.
Yeah.
You want this to go away? You want this black eye to heal? You can. You just have to say it out loud. It was a mistake.
It was a mistake.
We fucked up.
We're sorry.
We denounced the policy.
Yeah.
We denounced Thomas S. Monson. We're not more than mere men, and we can do dumb things.
They don't even have to denounce him. They just have to say, "Look, this is a thing that happens every now and then." All they have to say is, "Our prophets," and this is the actual like official position of the church, which is prophets are human. They make mistakes sometimes.
Right.
So no, there weren't men on the moon the way Joseph Smith and Brigham Young both said there were. And sometimes that just happens, and we made a mistake, and we're sorry.
That's the workaround they invented for Joseph Smith's child fucking and Brigham Young's racism was, well, sometimes they're just men.
Yeah, exactly.
Except that then they double down.
Exactly.
And he fucking says, "Oh no, we only teach love and we only teach what's right."
Stop.
And
yeah.
believe me, I'm your prophet.
Stop saying that there was any divinity in this. Just it was a mistake. And admit it was a mistake, and here's the other thing you have to do. Apologize.
Yeah.
You apologize for the damage you've done. You should funnel some of that tax-free dough to suicide prevention programs rather than reparative therapy.
Yeah.
It's so easy. This is actually the easiest thing, except that, you know what happened? The church fired their huge New York-based PR firm a while back that was doing wonders for them.
Oh.
I didn't read about this. You can see it.
Yeah.
Like they were doing great for a while, and they had all of these campaigns that were really building a lot of goodwill in the world.
And I'm a Mormon.
Yeah, and I'm a Mormon was a great one. Like all of these things, and then they clearly just stopped with that and started. I mean, it was back when they thought Mitt was going to be prophet or president. Prophet.
Same difference.
Same diff.
Same diff. And so it's clear that they're just, well, that didn't work. He didn't make it, so fuck it. And then now they're just
when they found out that the PR firm of Borstein Eisenstein was a bunch of Jews, they panicked.
And they've been trying to pedal their bike backwards ever since.
Yeah, I mean, I just think, look, church, because you're listening, admit it was a mistake, apologize for it, and while you're at it, why don't you try and repair some of the damage by maybe paying damages to some of the families of kids who committed suicide or tried to commit suicide because of this policy. And while we're in this hypothetical, admit the whole thing was made up and give all your ill-gotten gains to charity.
Yeah, right.
So short of that, you can please to be shutting the fuck up about things.
And so this is something I've always said about Mormonism. It's true also of a lot of religion, but certainly it was the case in Mormonism. What Nelson did in that BYU devotional is one of the most insidious things they do, which is the inversion of language, right?
Yeah,
totally. Most Mormons live a life of incredible servility and toil, and their lives just consumed by hours spent, doing church activities, even cleaning the toilets of the church for free. And they call that happiness. Whereas, saying all of this brutality and hatred and all these things they've opened up against, especially LGBTQI kids, all this violence, calling that love is fucking despicable.
Mark, I don't mean to correct you, but LGBTQ is plenty.
That's right. The prophet said so, didn't he?
You don't need to go on to any other letters.
In fact, according to the prophet, we're dropping the Q.
Oh, it's just LGBT?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. That's all you need. Enough with the other letters are just superfluous.
They're gobbling up all the other letters for middle initials.
Yeah. Oh my God! It is this church is I think our focus on it is because obviously it's the nearest and least dearest to us, but also it's an interesting little microcosm that kind of spells things out, it's writ large in all of these other religions. It happens in all of them.
Yeah.
But they're such bumbling doofuses.
Yeah.
That we get it's so much more obvious when they fuck up.
Yeah.
And the same thing. Yeah, it's crazy.
Well, it's like when astronomers see a black hole forming, right? There's plenty of older black holes they can look at, but you learn a lot watching a black hole form, and because it's in the same way Scientology is a new black hole, Mormonism is just a bit tiny bit older than that. So you can learn so much about how these other things, these things that suck all kind of intelligence and hope out of the world, how they work when you watch Mormonism kind of fumble through its first couple centuries in real time.
It's not really fun watching a stable black hole. You really want to watch that black hole that's struggling.
Yeah.
And shrinking.
Catholicism is boring at this point. You got to go Mormon.
All right. Just sucked for a long time.
Thanks, Uncle Doug. We appreciate you bumming us out with Mormonism.
Anytime.
Let's move on.
Moving on.